Good evening. Welcome to Community and Technology, where we connect the global community with news, information, and resources that we hope help improve your life. I'm Stu Reid. I'm here with my UBI co-hosts, Diana Blackwell, who's the Tenant Association president at Fred Samuel Houses in Central Harlem, and an active community advocate for UBI and other issues in Harlem. And Enno Schmidt, who's the co-founder of the Basic Income Initiative and the referendum on basic income in Switzerland, and author of the film, Basic Income, A Cultural Impulse. Welcome back, guys.
Thank you.
Okay,
Thanks for having me.
And we have a very special guest today on our UBI show. I'm gonna throw it over to Enno for an introduction. Enno.
Well, yeah, this special guest is Sascha Lieberman, Dr. Sascha Lieberman, who is professor in Germany at the Alanus High School. And he started an initiative in the beginning of the century with that interesting title, Freedom Instead of Full Employment. And he wrote texts that inspired me at that time. It was before I started the initiative in Switzerland. And yeah, Sascha is the first professor for basic income in Germany. Not only basic income, but that was the reason why he became the professorship at Alanus High School. And he's still very actively and one of the most asked speaker from the side of sociology. Yeah, well, and I think for me, it's always inspiring what Sascha can say about our current situation, democracy and so on, and how close it is to the idea of basic income. So that universal basic income is not so much a utopia, but it is an underestimated present in which we live. So we don't look enough for the rights we have, for the opportunities we already have, our ancestors fighted for. And that's always interesting for me, this reality check, so that basic income is not far from our daily reality and the laws and so on, which we already have. And yeah, I hope that Sascha will tell us a little bit about that, but I want to give it back to you.
Thanks, well, Sascha. Welcome. Please go ahead.
Yeah, thanks for having me. It's a pleasure.
So well, Diana, I think you have a question inside, and your question from Harlem to Sascha could be the beginning.
Well, I know that I'm really excited about having you here, and I'm really anxious because we're looking forward here in Harlem to begin a pilot program. And I really don't even like to say pilot program, but we'd like to start. And I'd like to say this, that what we're learning is that people don't know about it. And what I'm trying to share, it's right. It's a right if you're living. And how are you going to have your needs met? We just came through a pandemic. So how can we convert their thinking to saying this is a natural habitat? How can you help us begin to change their minds so that they can expect the unexpected when it happens?
Yeah, well, you know, what Enno mentioned, when we started as a group of citizens in Germany to bring the idea into the public, we were one group of several, but we didn't know each other at that time. What was very important is, first of all, to bind the idea of the universal basic income and the connection to human dignity it contains to the living circumstances in our present surrounding, you know, in Western democracies. That was our first idea, and that's how it came to the very sometimes irritating slogan from freedom, not full employment, because what we had in mind is that in a democracy with citizens, based on human dignity, on individual rights and responsibility, freedom should be the thing in the center. That all should be about freedom and self-determination within a community. And so what might be helpful for your campaigning or piloting is that explain that UBI is not something for better times, in 100, 200 years. It's something we need in the present, and we have the preconditions to introduce it. Look at the Constitution, based on individual responsibility. In the US, happiness. In Germany, individual self-determination within a community. So all you need to introduce a universal basic income is already there in Western democracies, but we are not aware of it. That's the most striking thing in every discussion I've experienced so far, that when you tell people, but look, how do we live today? What is it based on? We trust in people's capacity to deal with their own way of living. We leave it up to them to make decisions in everyday life. We rely on it. So that's what UBI does as well. That's nothing new. It's simply a development of from present circumstances to an improvement for self-determination. That's what UBI does. Karl Widerquist sometimes calls it, it gives you the power to say no, and I would add as well, to say yes to things you can't say yes to today. So.
It's very interesting. But I heard what you're saying. I think you said one word that's quite interesting. You said enlightened. And that's where I think we need to take it, so that it does become a light bulb to them, that they'll understand that it is a right. It has no condition. And I guess in this Western hemisphere over here, where everything we receive now has to have something attached to it. In other words, they're looking, oh, if you give it to me, we know that we're going to owe someone, whether it's an individual or if it's the government. As you know, we have our first real pilot. Oh, it's not a pilot, even though it's a short term, but we have our real first basic income, and it's called the Child Care Tax Credit. And this is given for 6 months, ends in December, to anyone having a child, as whoever has paid their taxes. They get $300 per child for 6 months. And there's no condition with it. So this is the first time we can actually say, hey, this is what a UBI looks like, but we have to still work on them receiving that information, them being enlightened to it, that there's no condition to it. And that's where I'm really trying to find out, how do we turn this light bulb on? So again, are there any suggestions?
Yeah, you're right. It's necessary to talk about it on and on. And you will receive all the questions we already know from time to time. Every talk you give, people ask you the same questions about UBI. Isn't it dangerous? People get lazy and so on. Be patient. Tell them, no, look at people today. What are they doing with their lives? Do they waste it in general? Do they stupid things in general? Is it the way that you can't trust anyone? No, that's not the point. When you walk along the streets in New York City, where I have been for several times, of course you rely on the people around you. You don't. You're not afraid of being attacked with a knife or a gun. That's not the way you walk through a city. That's not the way you walk through life. Of course there is crime. Of course there are attacks, but that's not what you expect. That's not what you can live on, and that's the point. Let me get to the tax credit. We have this debate in Germany too. People try to tell that, we have something like a child basic income. That could be a stepping stone, and that seems plausible. Okay, yeah, I'm fine with that. But then people say, yeah, wait, it's for children. But we don't expect children to work. Correct. So that's why they deserve a basic income, but the parents not. We expect them to work. And that's, you know, that is the, how to tell you, that's the hurdle you have to take in the debate, that it's not about work or non-work. It's about human dignity. It's about self-determination. It's about the way to enable people to use their rights. And you need a floor you can stand on to follow these rights. You know, there's freedom is nothing when you don't have anything to eat. So that's the point. The way we are living today is that we need money to make a living. So independence means we need money to buy things, but independence also means rely on other people, on what they contribute. So that's a general question for all in a community. What is what I can or what I would like to contribute to the community, and what is it what I would I'm interested in, and how can we combine this, and as open as possible. What we do today is same questions, but the answer should be in the first place labor, paid work. You can do anything you want after you've gone into paid work. And that's something we should turn around. That's what basic income does. Of course, you can work when basic income would be introduced, but you can do a lot of different things. And work is much broader than labor. Work is taking care for the elderly, taking care for children, taking care for the community, taking care for yourself also is very important. So that's what the UBI opens up and leaves it up to you how you use this kind of freedom and self-determination. And that's, you have to, you know, that's something you have to talk about on and on. Try to, you know, one experience we often made, Enno is very familiar with it as well. First, when you tell about the idea, people say, oh, that doesn't work. No, that's not possible. You know, who would clean the streets with a basic income? Who would be willing? That's a problem. But then you ask, are you sure? Is it really a problem? Are we really, when you ask ourselves today, can we really guarantee that someone's cleaning the street? Oh, we can't. We have a labor market, and labor market means people choose. So, no, the fear they have about what basic income might, the impact might be, is a fear they could also have today. That's very strange. You know, it's like a fear or anxiety they combine with basic income, but not with the insecurities we have today. So that's what I meant by sometimes we're not aware of how many things in our present situation is the same as it would be with basic income.
I think the important point is we rely on each other. The basis of democracy, our constitution in the US as well as in Germany, is that people are doing things by their insight, and that we rely on each other, and we rely on the responsibility and capability to make decisions for the good of the whole society. And but that we are not really consciousness about that. So that democracy means we trust everybody in the society to be able to make decisions for the whole of the society for the best. And why not in focused on work or labor, because there is this totally strong idea: to get money, you have to give labor. You have to give something what is paid for, what we are paid for. And I think this is so interesting, and we have to solve this ideology. It is an ideology. It is from the ancient times, when really every hand was needed. Every hand was needed. We are living in a time where the bigger problem is that we don't need so many people for the work which is necessary to do. We have machines, we have computers, we have digitization, we have more and more the problem that with this old ideology, we don't know what to do with the people. And that was, in New York, for example, so many women as guards and as police helpers and whatever, 20, 30 people in a little space, all are employed just to be employed. There was no need for them. And this is unhuman, massively. It's a shame, because to take the time, the lifetime from the people, to take them busy with something what is really not necessary, this is disgracing people, to steal the time from the people. But I think these are the problems of our time, also without a basic income, an unconditional basic income, that people are put in jobs which are not necessary, or in so-called bullshit jobs. So that, in communism, the concrete heads of communism and real socialism, they couldn't think apart income and work. So everybody was employed. And that destroyed the economy, that weakened the people, and that produced absurd productions, totally absurd. But it's somehow it's the same with the concrete heads of capitalism or our politicians, that they think work is always paid work, and we have to solve that. We have to make it to divide that. More than half of all work done is unpaid done today, and unpaid work is often much more helpful for the cohesion of society, for your soul and so on, what people do in churches, what people do in associations and so on, voluntary work and so on. This is so important for society. But we look to it as something that is weak, that doesn't contribute to GDP, and so we don't care about that. And this is wrong. And that is the end of society. That's a danger. So we are going down with the people when we don't understand that work is lifetime, and work is what people do by their understanding and their attention and awareness of the need of others. And if we don't understand what meaning is in work, what makes work meaningful, sensible, I think, this is the point. And Diana, for example, I think that is also in discussions the most interesting point. It's difficult for people to understand the unconditionality. So there has always been any strings attached to that. Why is it?
Are you asking me, Enno?
Oh, I'm asking the audience, the world, everybody in the world. But mainly, I think first Diana, but then Sascha, you too.
I don't really know, but that's the way it was set up, because when you look at just society in general, when we know that there's much land out there, why is it that we still have people without homes? There's space, there's a lot of questions like why? Why is it everybody's crowded in one area when there's empty spaces all over? Why is it that everybody's looking to stay in the city? Those are the big questions. But I'm going to kind of go back to something that you both were saying. In New York, after the pandemic's height, I looked at people as jobs came back. And in the midst of jobs coming back, wages were raised. But the problem was, no one took the jobs with the higher wages. So the problem was not that there was no jobs. The problem was they didn't like the jobs, even though it paid higher. So right now we're hearing from Congress, some of the states stopped the unemployment to try to get people to go back to work. And still there's jobs opening. And it's basically what you said, you know, nobody wants to do bullshit jobs. And it's true. But how do we convert that? Again, I'm going back to the same question. How do we convert that to people understanding that it's your right to have a living wage just to get you to the job that you want to work, to a career that you want to have? How do you convert that from word to an actual living energy into people?
I would say, as Enno mentioned, you know, one of the striking aspects of the UBI debate is that this unpaid work, and most of unpaid work is care work at home. You know, it's not working for associations, it's at home, raising children, you know, it's a 24-hour job, 7 days a week, all of the year, because, you know, when they wake up in the night and they feel bad, then you wake up to try to, you know, help and be with them and till they get back to sleep. And so that's a 24-hour job. But in the debate about, as Enno mentioned, GDP, it's not counted because you can't measure it. Mm-hmm. It's difficult to measure it. And what is forgotten in the GDP debate is that without unpaid work, there would no GDP exist. You know, as a colleague of mine, the Australian economist Duncan Ironmonger once said, the GDP as a gross domestic product, that's not the right notion. You should call it cross market product, because all the work done beyond the market is not counted. It's not included. So the word GDP is not the right word for that, what we're talking about when you talk about wealth in that GDP sense, in the economic sense. So we need all this unpaid work to raise children that they once become citizens who can contribute in either way, be it paid work, be it community work, being helpful for the community to exist, to fight for rights or to protect rights, whatever, you know, you need all this kind of activities. But first of all, you need the basis for it, the respect for the individual itself, for the existence, that it simply is there. And that's what I meant by human dignity. And that is it is so simple when you look at it, but it seems so difficult to tell people how basic this idea is of human dignity. And it is, you know, historically speaking, it's quite new. It's not that you can't say that it's a global idea. There are societies in which human dignity as an individual right is not the basis of the political community. There are a lot of them, but in our countries, in the Western world, it is the basis, and it's something we can rely on and can say, you know, without us, without citizens, the state is nothing. The country does not exist. So we need to respect human dignity. So, and that's now the second question. Okay, and how can we help to do this? By supplying money. Okay. Deliver money to the people. You know, it's not about buying Porsche or Ferrari or something. It's about the basis, a stepping stone, or some call it the floor to stand on, to make decisions more freely than today, whatever direction they take.
I think Diana's question also was very focused and sharp. Why is it that people has no home? Why is it that so many people are in such a desperate situation? Why is it?
Yeah, that's a good question. It's obvious that people need homes, so we can't explain the situation by saying they don't know, but they do know. We all do know. It's a common problem. It's on the news, but a problem might be there, but it's not seen as a heavy, important problem. So we decide which problems we take serious and which not. And it's strange to me as well, but it seems that the lack of homes for people is not such an important problem for the community that it really tries to solve this problem. That's awkward,
So is it because we say that's their failure, their duty? They did things wrong, so that's why they are on the streets. Is it because of that? What is the mentality? Because it's a question of mentality. It's not a question of money. There's enough money. There's enough space to live. What is it? What is it? What thing in the brain or in your habit, or what is it that we don't care for them? Not enough.
Yeah, but it's a difficult problem. Homeless people, there are separate, different reasons for being homeless. It's not about it's not simply about not having money. From research, we know that for some people having like biographical traumas, it's difficult to live in a fixed place. In a room where you have to put furniture in and to live in a steady place. So it's difficult to help people with that problem. But at least UBI would give them money. Yeah. At least they would have money. Yeah. That's a lot. Yeah. And others who would like to live in a home and would love to have a home, they will need political decisions to help them. Either community buildings, about public housing, how the different ways to build houses or apartments, publicly, privately, but either way should be supported by policies. Politics as well, and as long as we don't take that for serious, nothing will happen. That's.
I just want to tell briefly the experiment in London that was conducted some years ago with homeless people, very hardcore homeless people, and they cost a lot for the government of London, all the social workers and all the programs and so on, what they try to get them back and get them away from alcohol and so on. And then one day they decided, well, we are ready with that. We don't do anything for that, for those guys anymore. We give them just money. So they refused to give them just money, and that's a common behavior. But then, because they saw no chance, no perspective, nothing, just give them money. And the money, the amount was not so low. It was really money. It was really a good amount every month. Mm-hmm. And what happened? Those guys who were on the streets for several years, nothing to change. I don't know exactly the percentages, but around about 70% of them, some stopped drinking alcohol. They felt responsibility for themselves. It was their money, their decision. It was not set by all those people who tell them what to do and so on and so on. They were alone, but they have money. So they take jobs. They take an apartment again. Some went back to the family. So most of them, there was no chance to do anything to stop the situation for them. But if this with this freedom and this feeling of self-responsibility for my life, much more than half of those went back in good situations and took their life in their hands. So the failure is to tell people what they should do, to just pay people, you are too stupid to know what to do with money, so I give you few food stamps. All this is weakening the people. And that's the same from some experiments in India, for example. Sarah Tavalla, who made that experiment, told me. So the most important thing is to give people the ability in cash to decide by themselves. All the programs made by politicians at the green table, that looks very nice. We do good things for others. That is not good for others. That is good as a program and on a paper. That is good in a chancellery. It's not good in real life because it doesn't work. And it always says you are too stupid to decide for yourself, and that weakens the people. So the unconditional is it what gives the people the feeling well, I'm asked, I'm responsible for myself, and that's the most important point. Also, pilot projects in Brazil, for example, from some people, they paid a very low amount. It was really not enough to live from, absolutely not. But people said that doesn't matter so much for us. It is unconditional. You give that to us with no strings attached. And that is strengthening me. That gives me self-esteem. That gives me perspective. That means me. And that is the core point of an unconditional basic income. It means the human being, you individual, welcome. You are capable. You have the right to live here. And I welcome you. And that exactly is what some people really don't want, really don't like. They like function. They like, finally, slaves. They like to force people to do good things for others. So that's a problem also for this, for example, World Economic Forum book Great Reset, where basic income is mentioned as a main social innovation, but in a way that the elites decide what's good for others. And that time is over. It's no longer the time that the elites decide what's good for others. Never. Everybody can decide what's good for him or her, herself, himself. This is old stuff, and this is new slavery, or this is to continue an understanding of authorities and elites who are knowing everything better. An unconditional universal basic income is doing the opposite. Everybody is capable and able to decide and to think for themselves and to do the steps for themselves. And that is so important, and that's for the world so important, and I say that in every show here. I expect that you go ahead in the US. Your constitution is based on an idea of human rights. So go, it's your duty not to make war everywhere. It's your duty to go ahead with that. And the Germans too, because we have this horrible crimes.
So Diane, now you know what to do.
Let me just interject, folks, for a moment. This is WHCR 90.3, the voice of Harlem. You're listening to Community and Technology, our special show on unconditional basic income with Diana Blackwell and Enno Schmidt and special guest Professor Sascha Lieberman. And we're talking about freedom and income and how they are connected and disconnected in this country. And I just want to go to Diana for a minute, because Diana, you are very active in public housing, and you're talking about homelessness and housing and public housing. And what's your sense of what impact unconditional basic income could have on the public housing community in New York City?
Well, I'm also a gardener. So when I think about gardening, I think about people. We don't only grow vegetables and fruits, we grow people. This would be a resource to grow people, grow their ideas, grow things that they just desired. Income, again, would give the freedom that you mentioned, Sascha. It would give them the freedom to do things that they have been bound from doing in the past. Maybe they wanted to continue their education, but they had no babysitter. You pay a babysitter, you find your way to school. It might be something like creating a job. It would give them the freedom, the liberty to go out there and pitch their idea to people that they've never done. And to just thinking about it, because I know poverty is a business. And a lot of people have that mentality. They're going to work within this business of poverty. I choose not to, but a lot of people choose to work within that business. Maybe they will change their mind with a little extra income and move forward to create a business that will propel them to somewhere else and maybe take someone else with them. So when you talk about public housing and a basic income, I think it's a great growing space to start, get some people free.
Mm-hmm. Sascha, you know, you're in Europe, and you are based in Europe, I believe. And you know, I'm wondering whether or not you are seeing the same. You know, one of the attitudinal problems I have, and this is back to what Enno was saying and Dan as well, is just the attitude. We are so focused on money here in the United States, and not money in the sense of the unconditional aspect of the income needed, but on almost worshiping money, and that's the be all to end all, and the human values and the human needs kind of take a second shrift to the value of money itself. I'm wondering whether or not you see that same thing in Europe, or whether or not there's a difference in, and how do we combat that? How do we, you know, I've seen a shift just in my lifetime over the last 30, 40 years of just a real focus on the accumulation of wealth. And I think I've seen it so skewed in the last 30, 40 years, where so much of the wealth now is concentrated in the hands of such a few. And it wasn't always that way. I mean, yes, we always had the upper class and the landed class and the owners of corporations, but the schism between the haves and the have-nots seems like it's so much wider today. Do you see that same situation in Europe, and how do we kind of change the thinking?
At least we have the same debates about the schism you mentioned. Between the poor and the rich, or the poor become poorer and the rich become richer. And it's a bit difficult with the data. I'm not very much into that field, but you know, the problem is that money is worshipped as something being having a value in itself. And that is misleading, because, you know, the money helps you to buy things other people have created or delivered. And the money itself is nothing. You know, we know that from the socialist countries, that not money was the problem quite often, it was the lack of goods. And so the money is something you can use for certain products or services, and these services or products come from people who work in that field. So it's like you know, you're dependent on those who work and produce or deliver these services. As you know, children are dependent on parents taking care for them. So the money is not something with a value in itself. But as you said today, we have this strange idea that the money is the important thing to accumulate money and more money. And we tend to forget that it's not the money itself we should strive for. You know, it's wealth is a much broader thing than accumulating money. Wealth is having time for other people, having time for yourself, developing the community, to look after how rights are realized, how's the city living circumstances. You mentioned public housing, you can say social work, for example. But when we set up programs today, then, as Enno mentioned, it's there is a goal in these programs, and this goal is to bring people back to work, in the long run. And we do not set up programs to support their autonomy, their self-responsibility, no matter what they're doing with it. The programs we know today, the welfare programs, they have a certain goal, a certain purpose people should follow. If not, they lose the program. And that's where the stigma comes from, what we know by homeless people as well as unemployed and so on, is the stigma when you do not the right thing, and the right thing is the paid work thing, then you do something against community. And that's like a norm, It's something you should do. That is the best thing to do. That is what the common good consists of, that everybody who is able does paid work. And that's the way we look at money. When you transfer this to money, is having money means having contributed. I earn an income. That's how we express this. We earn the income. But, there's nothing we have to earn as human beings, because we are a value in ourselves, so to speak. Yeah. So we have to build that bridge to see that money is only something you use for something different. It's not a value in itself. And that's something that you find in the basic income debate as well. Some people think that the most important thing with the UBI is that you get money. Yeah, but yet there's much more you get. The money is simply a symbol, Money, the money includes that society recognizes you as a human being, and that you receive the money simply for being there. No other purpose. So that's more than simply money. It's about recognition. It's about self-responsibility, about, enabling you to make decisions more freely. And the money serves this purpose.
That's an unknown or subconsciousness aspect of religion. So that you see, you mix up value and money. So because you are thinking money is gold, it was gold, and it is somehow something like that. It is, and that's the point. It is divine. It is eternity. So all the goods and services have a limited time to function, to serve you, to exist. But money not. Money has an aspect of eternity, and that's a spiritual aspect. That's an aspect of spiritual world. People don't think about that, but they feel that and they deal like that. So, and to have more money, to get more and more money, what is it? That is a promise of health in heaven. That is, you can do whatever you want. You get some power like God. You can buy everything. You can order everything. So the religious aspect, I think, is very important for our totally absolute importance of money. And to think money is the value of work. It isn't. There's nothing to do with work. The value of work is a benefit for others, and so on. But there is a misunderstanding or an ideology of money, and in my perception, that is linked to an unknown religious aspect that everybody has. So that this is from the past. And you see, when we want to come to an unconditional basic income, we have to understand better money. We have to understand better what is work really. We have to understand so many things. And the revolution or the progress starts in thinking, with rethinking, and with a new enlightenment. That's what I think is a basic income. It is triggering and pushing a new enlightenment. and then follow up. An unconditional basic income will come, not before. So what comes before is payments which are partly unconditional because so many people has no jobs. But the real aspect of a universal basic income, which is for everybody, it's not for the poor, it's not for single mothers, it's not for the rich, it is for human beings. This is work, this is effort. And people are too lazy today to do this work and effort to understand the society where we are living in, and to rethink so many old things we think we know, but it's no longer true. We have to think on. We have to, yeah.
Let me just say this about money. When you were given a description of money, money is power. And everybody that has money has in their own little circle, in their own little aura, there is the ability to control something, whether it's their life or someone else's life. That's what money does. And if it is given unconditionally, you're going to start finding people with that power to control their destination. Mm-hmm. And I believe this is where we want to take, UBI, that they will have control of their destination. It shouldn't be that they're just going to receive money, because what are you going to do? We know that there is factors such as mental health. They may not, produce in society the way others will. But let's take that out of the formula. If people are given money, they will have the power to change their self, change others around there, change their community, change the world. And that's what our goal should be, to make sure that they have the power to make the necessary change.
Yeah, and and the thing is that this includes also that they can fail with using the money. It's their money. It's their money. Mm-hmm. They can't even waste it. They can't just buy alcohol with it. Right. That's their freedom, so to speak. And sometimes even in the UBI debate, some people are afraid that the money is not used in the right way, to free ourselves. But that belongs to UBI. Yes.
Yes.
You can waste it. You make experience that might be the wrong way, and then you find out.
Yes.
And if not, at least you got the money every month.
Right.
That's a very radical idea of human dignity. And as you said, Diane, it gives you power.
Yes.
It's right. It gives you power. And when in debates in Germany, Stu, you asked, for example, when you discuss UBI with union representatives, sometimes you get the impression that to give people this kind of power, they're afraid of. Mm-hmm. They are afraid that people might have this radical kind of power, and they may refrain from unions. Mm-hmm. So that's very strange, because then it comes back what Enno introduced. There is a kind of slaveholder mentality sometimes, that it's better to control people a little bit, that they keep track. Mm-hmm. And UBI is a radical freedom in that way.
Yeah, we've had this debate before on the show, where we kind of talk about the folks that control the majority of resources in this country and how they like it that way, and how, in fact, folks are, in fact, slaves to the system. You may have a job, but you're working for somebody else. You're working to make a corporation and their owners and stockholders wealthy, and you're not really working for yourself. So it is, just, in my mind at least, it is just a more sophisticated form of a slavery, volunteer slavery, if you will, And that needs to change. And the folks that are in charge and control, as you mentioned, Sascha, the union leaders and others in power don't want to give that up, and they see income sharing and revenue sharing and resource sharing as a threat to what they control and what they own. So we just got a couple of minutes left, so I just kind of like to go around and get final comments from everyone. Sascha, you wanna kick it off?
Yeah, well, let's pick up what Diane asked in the beginning of the show. How to convince people of the idea that UBI is a good thing. Well, I really should underline that talking to people is the most important thing. While my experiences tell me from the German debate that public talks, public discussions, discussing back and forth what UBI is about, that is the most important thing to improve the debate, to develop the debate. You can write papers and articles and so on, that's fine, but talk to people, in a live situation, and then you can ask them. For example, we made the experience with that double question. Enno did that in the movie. You ask people first, what would you do with the universal basic income? And then they answer, well, I like my work, and I would continue this work, or I would care for this or that, and so on. And then the second question is, what do you think would other people do with the universal basic income? This is a difficult question. You never know. Would they keep on working? I'm not sure. And that is it's striking, how could someone who is so much convinced that he likes his work, the way he's doing it, and he would continue doing it with UBI, how is someone able, when it comes to others, that he does not trust that they would do the same as he does? That is very strange. And, when something like this happens in conversation, then you can ask people, are you sure? Why? Why are you so skeptical? Where does that mistrust comes from? When you think you would keep on going, why shouldn't others too? And then you can see how it, the head begins to work inside, that maybe there's a discrepancy. I don't know why I'm question 1 positive, question 2 negative. I don't know. It's strange. And they discover a contradiction in themselves. And therefore you need public talks. It's very helpful.
Excellent. Okay. Final comments.
Well, yeah, I made several interviews with homeless people under the bridges of Oakland, California. They never have heard about that idea before. I asked them about UBI. What do they think? Is it a good idea or bullshit? It was very interesting for me what concerns they've had, and then what arguments and stories they've had in direction of the UBI. And in particular, what I want to say is that I really, really admired them. I admired them in this life situation on the street with their tents, that they stood there so present, so clear somehow, even if they take drugs or something, but they were clear somehow. And they stood there holding their lives. And I thought, wow, if I would live in such situation, I would be much worse than those people. They perform so much to still be alive, and I admired them really. So that is that I experienced. These people are real strong persons. real good people, really good people in desperate situations, and they all have had a story why, and there was always an awful story. So it's not there from the beginning on situation. It is from life, and they are so strong in it, and they really deserve to live better.
Mm-hmm. Okay, Diana, you get the last word.
Okay, well, I was so excited. Thank you, Sascha, for sharing. Very enlightening. How's that? Very enlightening. And today I am focusing on words, words such as freedom and recognition and respect and human dignity. And I really felt that these were the words that really just shaped this conversation today. And I think this is kind of helping me so that when I go forward, when I go out there, I will kind of shape my conversation with these words. So I thank you very much.
Great, thank you.
Okay, thanks everyone. This has been Community and Technology, our special Unconditional Basic Income show with Diana Blackwell, Schmidt, and special guest, Professor Sascha Lieberman. Thank you all for joining us on Community and Technology. Stay tuned for more information and programming on WHCR 90.3, The Voice of Harlem. Thanks for tuning in. See you next week, 5 o'clock. Good night.
Good night.